Hello everybody, and welcome to my very first top 10 list. In celebration of hitting 10,000 subscribers, I asked my viewers to come up with 10 top 10 lists of any topic they wish that they thought would be interesting or entertaining for me to compose. Today, we will be counting down my top 10 Let's Plays that I've done on my channel, at least as of 2017. Special thanks to Liz Draconis22, Azazel AOX, and Hannah for requesting this list. Now, I should clarify that this list does not necessarily imply what are my top 10 favorite games. It's my top 10 favorite Let's Plays that I've done on games. These are Let's Plays that I had the most fun putting together, am most proud of, or just feel like it's one of the best quality that I could have done. Before I continue, I must say that I will do my very best to avoid dropping major spoilers of the games on this list. However, just be warned that this list may still contain some minor spoilers or references to the plot that you may wish to exercise discretion upon. So without further ado, here are my top 10 favorite LPs that I have done thus far. Number 10. Seduce Me 2 Demon War. Action, magic, and demons that want to hook up with you. What's not to love about this game? As the name implies, Seduce Me 2 is the second installment to the Seduce Me visual novel Otome series, created by indie game developer Michaela Laws. While the first game introduced you to 5 incredibly eligible male succubi to tantalize your main female protagonist, the second game continues with you about to get married to the demon of your dreams, when, well, stuff kinda hits the fan. I mean, the game is called Demon War, so you can probably put 2 and 2 together. First of all, the game itself is super fun. Great soundtrack, awesome story, and the voice acting is solid. It would still be a great game without it, but the cast who voices the characters adds so much to the experience. Now, I've done a bunch of visual novel dating sim games on my channel so far, but this is the only one which I actually LP'd through every single one of the romance paths for both games. And this is mostly because, unlike most visual novels, where I tend to really be genuinely interested in 1 or 2 characters, I fell in love with the entire Seduce Me cast, and thus was motivated to take the time to romance every single one of them. The closest I came to doing this was with Dream Daddy and Coming Out on Top, and in those I only LP'd 2 of the romances there. Therefore, one of the major reasons why I thought this was one of my best LPs is because it allowed every Seduce Me fan to enjoy it no matter which romance path or paths they were interested in seeing. The last reason I felt this game deserved to be on this list is because it eventually led to an amazing interview with the main cast that I'll be talking about in more detail in another top 10 list. Number 9. Fallout 4. Bethesda Games has done it again with this open-world action RPG that brings us into a rather unique post-apocalyptic world that mixes high-tech sci-fi with a classic American 50s style culture. While Fallout 3 was a giant step up from its previous 2 predecessors, Fallout 4 I felt really knocked it out of the park in many ways. First off, the world itself gave us more than just drab brown after drab brown after even more drab brown. Secondly, the biggest issues I had with other Bethesda games, including Skyrim, is that they were far too lone wolfy for my tastes and didn't have enough party gameplay that I tend to really love in RPGs. I just really enjoy the social aspects of party members, especially ones where you can develop bonds, deep friendships, and possibly even more. Sure, there were companions in their other games, but they were incredibly shallow and not particularly engaging. Fallout 4's companions are far more dynamic, interesting, and to be honest, likable. When I LP RPGs, the party members tend to be the topic I most enjoy commentating on, so without them, I find that I have far less interesting material to talk about. And as surprised as I was to realize this, I actually felt many of Fallout 4's romances rivaled, if not surpassed, some of the BioWare romances even.
When I left the Capital Wasteland, I didn't just leave Little Lamplight behind. I left my family behind. Had a beautiful wife named Lucy.
Wait, what?
A beautiful wife named Lucy.
What? I just felt that in many ways the romances in Fallout 4 were far more satisfying for what they were, and that also extended to your friendships with your companion characters as well. Again, this is completely my personal opinions, your mileage may certainly vary. Settlements, as much as I'm sure all you Preston Garvey fans totally love,
do you think you could go help out with the settlement?
Actually made this experience even better, because I really felt like I was part of a community, a sense that I was in it with a whole town of wastelanders that were just trying to work together to get by as a group. It wasn't so much the actual building or customizing of the settlements that I loved. Again, it was that social aspect of having not only a place to call home, but even a, dare I say, family to come home to that really enhanced my role-playing experience in the game. And top it all off, I really connected with my main protagonist, Gabriel. I had a very specific concept in mind for his backstory, and was able to draw from it numerous times depending on what was happening in the scene at that very moment. With every new friend he made, every moral decision that he encountered, we were able to watch Gabriel grow as a character through roleplay all throughout the game. That's what I felt makes watching this LP very interesting. I can remember numerous points where I would pause and explain what is going through Gabriel's head and what was the mentality behind each decision that he made. Gabriel truly felt like a real, complete person to me, and I feel that the quality of the LP greatly benefited from that. And while not necessary, the fact that my chosen character name is also spoken by a companion character adds more to the immersion factor.
Codsworth.
Mr. Gabriel?
Add in one of my favorite characters to romance in any game, Robert Joseph McSexy, and, well, then there's this.
The ambiguously gay duo, the ambiguously gay duo. They are taking on evil, come what may. They are fighting all crime to save the day. They're extremely close in an ambiguous way. They're ambiguously gay. They're ambiguously gay. The ambiguously gay duo.
The ambiguously gay duo. Tonight's episode. It takes two to tango.
Need I say more? Number 8. Dragon Age Inquisition. The Dragon Age series is personally my most beloved BioWare franchise. I had been waiting for this game for ages. You see what I did there? Okay. For me, this game did not disappoint. I loved the new game mechanics, loved the characters, loved the story, and of course, I love the romances. In fact, I love this game so much, I ended up LPing it not once, not twice, but 3 times with 3 completely different Inquisitors. That actually is a record thus far for any other LP that I've done. And to make things interesting, I tried to make sure each Inquisitor had completely different personalities, classes, races, religious beliefs, and even world states. Romances is a topic that I tend to have a lot of material to react on and commentate, and I was interested in romancing several of the characters in the game, hence all of my playthroughs. The second thing I had the most to react and comment on were all the major moral decisions. One in particular really hit me hard. I probably debated back and forth on it for about 5 or 10 minutes or so. While the open world was probably my least favorite new feature in the series, I was still thorough with exploring each map for all of you completionist viewers who were interested in that. Leading up to the release of Inquisition, I created a series of videos that analyzed every single companion character one by one, at least to give my initial thoughts on them prior to actually playing the game. And for those of you who requested me to sing, I did make a cover of The Dawn Will Come in celebration of completing the game for the very first time. For one day soon, the dawn will come. With all that, I am definitely waiting for the next Dragon Age installment, hoping its LP will be the next of my favorites. Number 7. Tales from the Borderlands. I've said before that this was probably my favorite Telltale game of all time, just barely beating The Walking Dead by a touch amount. I love the characters, the story, the sense of humor, the art style, the soundtrack, the introduction sequences, and the choices that truly made some lasting consequences later on down the line. Naturally, the most that I enjoy a game, the more I feel the quality of the Let's Play becomes. What's really impressive is that I love this game as much as I did, despite the fact that I had never played a single Borderlands game prior to this, and yet it's still my favorite Telltale game, and I think that says a lot. This game definitely gave me plenty of things to react to, especially all the laugh out loud moments. I think the one thing that would have made my Let's Play of this game even better would have been if I actually did play all the other Borderlands games. With that, I'm sure I would have been able to catch far more references to comment on and understand far more inside jokes to react to. But luckily, I am now trying to play through all the original Borderlands games one by one in a cooperative Let's Play as we speak. Oh, and then there's Vaughn. Oh, Vaughn, you lovable, adorkable man, you. Voiced by an equally lovable, adorkable man, Chris Hardwick. But I'll talk about him more on another top 10 list. For now, let's just move on. Get it? Okay. 6 more, people. 6 more. Number 6. Coming out on top. Visual novel, otome, or dating sim games are a huge guilty pleasure of mine. If you find it entertaining watching a grown man gush over pixelated dudes, those LPs would probably be right up your alley. If you don't find that entertaining in the least, then your enjoyment of them would probably be a little more limited. Coming on top was the very first dating sim that I ever LP'd, and it certainly is one of my favorite otomes. It also was one of the first otomes that ever starred a gay male protagonist, one that comes out of the closet for the very first time to his friends at the beginning of the game. The characters are diverse and likable, the storyline is fun, and I love how much dialogue choices you get. A major pet peeve of mine while playing these kinds of games is that more often than not, you have so limited dialogue choices. I feel that dialogue choices really help define a character and really makes them feel like your own. One of the reasons why I think this LP is particularly entertaining are my genuine reactions to the, zestier scenes of the game. There's some pretty spicy content in this game that have made me squirm very uncomfortably, and I can't help but feel amused watching myself trying to keep a straight face while hiding all the blushing that's going on. Another reason why I think this LP belongs on this list is that I really could relate to what was happening to our protagonist, Mark, in this game. I felt that gave me a deeper connection both to him and the people he interacted with, and I felt that I had a lot of personal insight to comment on throughout the LP. Add on a very sexy ginger, In addition to an adorably cute old friend, coming out on top was an extremely fun ride. Number 5. Mass Effect 3. This being the very first LP I ever did on my channel, it was inevitable for this to end up somewhere on the list. It being my first, the visual audio quality isn't necessarily the best. I had a much older system and I didn't have a particularly decent microphone at the time. But regardless, I'm still very proud of being able to finish a massive game like this one. I still enjoy watching my reactions to all of the major scenes, especially when they involved moral decisions and heavy, deep feels. Regardless of the mixed feelings people had with this game, I personally absolutely loved every bit of it. And as the year progressed and more DLCs dropped, I believe you can see the progression in the quality of the videos and in my LP commentary. This style of taking my time to pause and share my thoughts on a particular scene or aspect of the game was the foundation upon which my style of LPing continues even to this day. This is the LP that started it all, and thus will always hold an extremely special place in my heart. If it weren't for this LP, I wouldn't be making this video at all in the first place. Number 4. Telltale's The Walking Dead Season 1. While Tales from the Borderlands is my favorite of all Telltale games, The Walking Dead Season 1 is an extremely close second. Believe it or not, this was not the first Telltale game that I had ever played, but it was the first one that I played when Telltale's popularity blew up into the household name amongst gamers that it is now. This game was so deep and so rich. I had not played anything like it before. It was revolutionary for me, and I don't think Telltale themselves realized what an impact a game like this would have on the industry at the time either. I love watching other people LP this game simply because there are so many things to react to, and I definitely had a lot to react to myself. I laughed, I cried, I was stunned, I grew angry, and I grew extremely frightened. You pretty much can see the entire gamut of emotions through me throughout the entire playthrough. This began an entire generation of Telltale games, and it catapulted my sheer love for the Telltale game company as a whole, especially since their games happen to be one of my favorites to live stream with, and I am so glad that I got to experience it for the very first time in an LP. Number 3. Until Dawn. So anyone who knows me well enough knows that I really don't like scary games. Well, to be more specific, I just don't like jump scares. So Five Nights at Freddy's and Amnesia would not be something I would be into playing. I did one super mini LP of Slender.
I told you, the gayness is coming out full-fledged. Whatever little masculinity I possess is just gonna go down the tubes. Down the tubes. Oh that's it! I'm done. That's it. I'm done. You guys, that's it. That's it.
But that was pretty much a one-time thing, just to alleviate the masses who kept asking me constantly to play a scary jump scare game. That being said, I do like scary movies if they actually have a very good, intriguing story or engaging characters. So movies like The Sixth Sense, The Others, The Cabin in the Woods, or the more recent Get Out all fall under this category. Even the Saw movies, at least the ones that I've seen. While I don't watch the Saw films for the gore, I do watch them because I actually find their stories compelling. When it was first released, Until Dawn was a game that I was so torn about playing. Conceptually on paper, it sounded like a game that was right up my alley. A deep story, with a vibrant cast of characters, and choices that result in major consequences. Consequences that could lead to the deaths of the characters. It seemed very similar to Heavy Rain, which is one of my favorite games of all time. The problem is, it is a horror genre game that contains a lot of jump scares, which I absolutely cannot stand. So, for the longest time, I put the game on the back burner until I, or others, could convince me to actually pull it out and let's play it. I had gotten so many requests to LP this game that I eventually cracked and decided to finally do so. And I absolutely loved it! Yes, the jump scares were there, but the rest of the game was so perfect for me that I was willing to overlook them and suffer through them. Plus, I'm sure watching my freakouts at the jump scares must have been one of the major highlights of the LP. But I had a lot to talk about in this game. I was so intrigued by the characters, the major decisions they had to make, the plot twists, the psychological experiences. This was chock full of rich topics I could sink my commentary teeth into, which is why I felt that it was one of my stronger LPs. It's a game that you can easily enjoy watching someone else play as if you were watching an interactive 90s slasher movie. And what also helped was that, surprisingly, I genuinely liked all of the teenagers, and thus grew very attached to them. Clearly, I had my favorites, but I was rooting for all of them and genuinely cared about their well-being, so that personal investment in a game where anyone could die at any moment made the stakes really high, and I felt that really enhanced the LP experience. It's a game that I will always regret not playing sooner, but better later than never. Number 2. Resident Evil 6. Now this was one of my earlier Let's Plays on my channel, and one that wasn't particularly popular, at least compared to all the Bioware games that I was playing at the time. So, how did this end up in my number 2 spot? Well, there's several reasons. This is definitely the most unique cooperative LP that I've ever done. Resident Evil 6 is divided into 4 separate campaigns that star 4 separate pairs of characters. The events of these campaigns are happening in parallel to each other, and every so often the campaigns will overlap each other when characters from one run into characters from the other. What's interesting is that you can technically play the campaigns in any order you want, and this affects the order that the major reveals or plot twists of the story occur. So, someone who plays the campaigns in a certain order would have a totally different experience versus another playing it in a completely different order. This was the basis of my commentary for this Let's Play. I asked 4 different players to co-op with me on the 4 different campaigns. As a viewer, I hoped that this would provide a very interesting array of diverse perspectives depending on whom I was playing with at the time. Some of my co-op players were die-hard fans of the Resident Evil series, and some weren't really familiar with the franchise at all. And I thought it would be very interesting to gather their thoughts on the experience of the game based on their familiarity with the series. To make things even more interesting, as an experiment, I asked each of my co-op players to play through the campaigns in a completely different order than myself. That way, we could all compare notes later and try to explore how our different experiences did differ from each other based on the order that we played through the game. This occurred in a special standalone Let's Talk with all 5 of us. I thought that conversation was particularly fascinating. And as an added bonus, I also created 2 more special Resident Evil 6 videos. One was a tribute music video of the game featuring one of my favorite songs, This Is War by 30 Seconds to Mars. The other was a quote-unquote real-time video that showed how all 4 campaign timelines overlapped each other in parallel by cutscene. I thought watching this was particularly fascinating. All of this contributed to making Resident Evil 6 my second favorite Let's Play that I have done. And my number 1 favorite Let's Play is... Let's Voice Act Earthbound. This was a massive labor of love. Easily the most ambitious project I have ever done to date on my channel. A project that spanned more than 3 years in the making and involved over 50 participants. Earthbound is easily one of my favorite SNES games and is probably one of my top favorite games of all time. It is a cult classic with a huge fan following. Since I had such an adoration for this game, I decided to do something totally different for my LP of it. I wanted to voice act the entire game. The PCs, the NPCs, the bosses, etc. I had an extremely amazing set of talented voice actors who contributed to this game.
Let me give you my new Super Orange machine. I call it Superma for short.
What?
Aha! You have too many items.
Superma?
I hope you'll accept the Superma, even if you have to toss some of your food.
Okay, well,
The main cast, consisting of Lucky Jack 20, Shali, Dead by Anime, and Pixel Prattle XP, were critical to the success of this LP. I could simply not have done it without them. The supporting cast, like Hypersonic voice acting and Mecha Michaelis, were also invaluable. I started out recruiting about 20 plus people at the start to voice the NPCs, but as the episodes were being posted, I invited the community to volunteer voice acting more characters if they were interested. No previous experience was necessary. In the end, I got about 30 additional people, so one of my favorite things about this LP is that it truly is a product of the entire community, not just myself and the main voice actors. And when I say the game is voice acted, I'm not just talking about the written in-game dialogue. The main characters actually banter with each other and with me all throughout the game. They constantly react to everything that is happening around them in real time, and quite often break through the fourth wall.
Well, why should I have to do that? If you noticed, I don't have to say any of those dorky Greek letters in any of the Super Smash Bros. Games, and my powers worked just fine, thank you very much.
Smash Brothers? Oh, you mean that flyer you got the other day?
Well, I gotta do something to pass the time between each of these episodes.
Even though you call PK Flash PK Pulse, what is PK Pulse anyway?
Yeah.
PK Thunder Gamma!
You also, for whatever reason, are somehow able to manifest PK Fire and PK Thunder in the Super Smash Bros. Game, even though you can't use them in this game at all.
What?
Oh, that's a very valid point, Pooh. You're absolutely right. How do you explain that, Ness?
Yes, my friend. With all due respect, Ness, do manage to tell how you pulled that off.
PK Fire! PK Thunder!
Doesn't sound so legit to me.
You're starting to really get on my nerves, Your Highness.
Through the voice actors' improv, we had an amazing time fleshing out these characters. We even had original fan-made music numbers with actual singing.
They all rely on our little buddy named Ness. Boom, bop, school, doom, bop, beatin', bop, school, doom, bop, strutting to the clip, boom, bop, little down, boom, bop, keeps it out of the cloud, boom, bop, get this down. We 5-6 screw show business, but we send our prayers with Ness.
Plus, we also had holiday special shorts, which were so much fun to put together. We even had ongoing special segments like Fun Facts with Ness, which quickly became a fan favorite. Not gonna lie though, putting this whole thing together was a pain in the butt sometimes. Coordinating 50 plus people was an organizational nightmare. Gathering all of their voice clips and editing each individual one took an excruciating amount of time. Far more time and effort than editing any other Let's Play I've ever done. But in the end, it was extremely worth it. The final product was totally worth it. My favorite part was definitely working with the main cast. We had meetings every other week to talk about the next episode, and I just loved developing a friendship with Logan, Shally, Hector, and Ray. Seriously, you guys rock. I have seen a few people voice act video games before in the past, but I don't think I've seen any of them voice act beyond the in-game dialogue, at least not to the extent that we have with Earthbound, and certainly not with as large scale of a cast as we have. I'm very proud to say that this LP is truly one of its kind. If you've never seen it before, I would definitely recommend you taking a peek. It's one of my proudest accomplishments of my life in the YouTube community, and is so deserving of my #1 favorite LP. Thanks for listening, everyone. Please put down in the comments what your personal top 10 LPs were. I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope that you enjoyed this top 10 list. And until the next one, love yourselves and love each other.